Greetings Internet, it's Relicine coming at you with another video battle report for Bell of Lost Souls. Today we'll be doing a little Warmachine and Hordes with Kaya the Wildborne versus a Tier 4 Lich Lord Venethrax theme list. The scenario we are using is Ammunition Run. For a description of that, see the most recent version of the SR 2013 document. I won the role to go first, so I'll start by deploying what little of my army does an advanced deploy, specifically Kaya, the Warpwolf Stalker, Ghetorix, the Swamp Gobbers, the Druid Wilder, and the Blackclad Wayfarer. Since I'm going first and I want to be able to respond as best as possible to Jerry's deployment, I'll keep things as centrally as possible with the Stalker to the left side with the wood, and Ghetorix to Kaya's right. Jerry will deploy throwing down his Mechanithralls and 2 units of Necrosurgeons in the center of the board with his Seethers and Pistol Rays flanking to the left and right. He has a single Deathripper, which will deploy to the right behind the hill with his Skarlock, so I can expect some spells to come flying at me from that direction. Venethrax deploys just behind his Necrosurgeons in the center of his possession. For my advanced deployment, the Bloodtrackers will deploy to the left side with the Ravagers to the right. With Venethrax's ability to gather souls, I'm concerned about the Ravagers getting torn to pieces by spammed Hellmouths, so I want to keep them away from his Arcnode and Skarlock. My Shifting Stones will deploy in the center so that I can set them up for second turn teleports. Jerry will AD next, putting 1 unit of Bloodgorgers opposite the Bloodtrackers and the other opposite my Ravagers with Gerlach in a position between both so that he can provide no sleeping on the job for knockdown immunity and overtake, which will allow the Bloodgorgers to move 1 inch after they destroy an enemy model, a really helpful ability with their paired melee attacks. To begin the game, the Bloodtrackers will declare the Bloodgorgers opposite them their prey and run forward. 2 of the Bloodtrackers will run to the far side of the house, while the rest will move up between the house and the center objective, being careful to avoid getting too close to the Bloodgorgers due to their 10-inch charge against living models thanks to the Bloodthirst rule. The Ravagers will run forward as well, keeping similar distance for the same reasons. The large unit of Shifting Stones with the Stonekeeper will shift forward in a position to give me optimal double teleportation ability on the next turn, with the small unit without the Stonekeeper staying 2 to 3 inches behind. Ghetorix will activate and run into the back unit of stones behind the linear obstacle and warping for hyper-aggressive in the event that Jerry wants to fire on him with one of his pistol wraiths. Kaya then will cast Spirit Door to teleport next to Ghetorix and cast Occultation on the Ravagers to protect them from spells and from the pistol wraiths. The Gorax riles and runs forward. The Warpwolf Stalker will run and tow into the edge of the forest, warping for prowl so that he benefits from stealth. The Wilder runs up onto the hill to contest or control the objective on the next turn, and the Blackclad phase jumps to the front unit of stones in with the Bloodtrackers. I end my turn by running up the Swamp Gobbers behind Kaya. Jerry starts his turn by running his Bloodgorgers forward to stop my Tharn Ravagers and Bloodtrackers from pinning him back during my next turn. Gerlach will then run behind the linear obstacle in the center of the board to keep the Bloodgorgers in his command range, so that they continue to benefit from no sleeping on the job and overtake. Next he runs his Seethers forward, 1 to the hill to his right and the other between the linear obstacle and the house on his left. His Pistol Rays then run to the outside of the Seethers on either flank. His Mechanithralls will run up behind Gerlach, followed by the Necrosurgeons. The Skarlock moves behind the Bloodgorgers on Jerry's right and casts Soul Harvest on them, granting Venethrax a soul token every time a model in that unit destroys a living enemy model. Venethrax activates next, casting Dragon Slayer on himself, granting a strength and arm buff, while also giving him the ability to re-fury from enemy warbeasts that he destroys. This spell, combined with Dismember, which grants him an additional damage die for melee attacks against warbeasts, will make him a serious threat to my heavies, so I need to make a concerted effort to keep them outside of his 11-inch threat range. This takes us into my second turn. Since I'm planning on sending my Ravagers in, I'll let Occultation fall because they'll pretty much be within 5 inches of the Pistol Wraiths anyway. Looking at the table, my goal for this turn is to remove Gerlach and as many of his Bloodgorgers as possible. I feel that with quick work, the Bloodtrackers will be able to wipe out a good deal of their prey unit, if not all of it, but charging them in will risk a terror check. 2 actually if I send them after both units. Since I don't want to risk 2 terror checks on the Bloodtrackers, I'll start with the Wayfarer, who I'm going to use to spray down his Bloodgorgers, hoping to clear out a space in front of the linear obstacle that Gerlach is behind. This will allow me to teleport in Ghetorix to kill him, then pull Ghetorix out with Spirit Door. I move the Wayfarer up and line up the spray and roll terribly. Needing 5s to hit and even less to kill, I only hit and disable one of his Bloodgorgers, but it passes its tough check. Consequently, I send my Bloodtrackers after both of the Bloodgorger units, hoping to kill as much of their prey unit as possible while also clearing out that space that the Wayfarer failed to. They charge in and I feel like they have pretty excellent coverage, standing a good chance of wiping out his entire unit until the worst happens. They pass their first command check against their prey unit but fail against the other. This means that my front line 10-point unit is dead in the water for both this turn and the next. I know immediately that they'll be wiped out on the following turn and that Venethrax will be sitting on a mountain of soul tokens, and I feel like I've been punched in the gut. Doing my best to recover from this, I send my Ravagers in, managing to kill 7 of his Bloodgorgers from the unit on my right, including the one that I needed to free up space for Ghetorix. This informs me that sending the Bloodtrackers after both units was a mistake since I didn't really need to risk that second terror check at all, but hindsight is 20/20 and making mistakes is how we become better players. Next I teleport Ghetorix forward twice, once with my small unit of shifting stones and once with a large unit, putting him just on the other side of the linear obstacle from Gerlach. While Slaughterborn will have a defense bonus for me attacking him over the wall, at Mat 9 with a Pack Hunter's bonus, Ghetorix easily hits and puts him down. For good measure, he purchases an attack on the Bloodgorger to his left and kills it. Had I not been on tilt from the earlier failed command check, I probably would have placed Ghetorix within melee range of his Seether next to the building, putting some damage into it as well. Again, another error on my part. Kaya activates next, casting Spirit Door to pull Ghetorix out of immediate danger from the Mechanithralls, Seethers, and Venethrax. She then scoots behind the linear objective so she can have the cover bonus if Jerry decides to open up on her with his pistol wraiths or arc spells from his Deathripper. I finish the turn by placing a smoke cloud over Kaya with the Swamp Gobbers. The Warpwolf Stalker then activates and advances to the edge of the cloud and warps for Prowl so that he can benefit from stealth. The Gorax advances and riles, and the Wilder moves into the scoring zone. Jerry starts his turn by upkeeping Soul Harvest on his right unit of Bloodgorgers and Dragon Slayer on Venethrax. The Bloodgorgers on Jerry's right activate and go after the fleeing unit of Bloodtrackers. At Mat 6, they can have trouble hitting the Defense 14 Bloodtrackers unless they benefit from Gang, which increases their attack and damage rolls by 2. The Blighted Trolls manage to hit and kill 5 of the Bloodtrackers as well as my Wayfarer. His dice weren't the greatest this turn, and more of the trackers lived than I had originally anticipated. Next, the Mechanithralls activate and run up so that they can respond to me on the next turn, followed by the 2 Necrosurgeon units, one behind the Mechanithralls and the other to the left near my Ravagers. Venethrax activates and advances into the woods to stay safe from my far-reaching heavies and casts Soul Hunter on the Bloodgorgers to his left. The Bloodgorgers then charge into my Ravagers, killing 3. This will put Venethrax at 9 soul tokens next turn, making the threat of his spells a bit unnerving. To finish off the turn, his right Pistol Wraith attempts to put some shots into Ghetorix, hitting with the first attack but missing with the second thanks to his high defense value of 14. The other Pistol Wraith runs through my models to threaten my right flank. He then charges his Seether into one of my Ravagers and manages to kill it. The Skarlock advances, doesn't cast a spell, and he leaves his other Seether and Deathripper on the hill where they are. To start my third turn, the remaining Ravagers charge in, one charging the Seether, and the others charging the remaining Bloodgorgers on my right flank. I roll hot on the Seether, putting 10 damage into it, and the other Ravagers kill 2 Bloodgorgers and a Mechanithrall. Next, I use the large unit of Shifting Stones to teleport Ghetorix over to the Seether on my right flank where it warps for strength and finishes the Seether off with ease. Then, the Bloodtrackers cower in place and succeed on passing a command check to rally so that what remains of the unit can attack again next turn. The Druid Wilder moves over to attack the Pistol Wraith on the right flank with her magical weapon and misses. The Stalker advances, warps for Berserk, and kills 4 of the Bloodgorgers on my left and an unfortunate Bloodtracker nearby. I forgot to cast its Animus before it started attacking, so unfortunately I won't be able to use Sprint to get it to safety, relying instead on Kaya's Spirit Door. My small unit of Shifting Stones shifts forward to block off potential melee threats from moving forward and going after Kaya on the next turn. Kaya goes next, casting Spirit Door twice to pull the Stalker and Ghetorix back towards her, away from the Seether on the hill and Venethrax on my right flank. Swamp Gobbers drop a cloud on Kaya, the Gorax riles for 3, and I pass the turn. Jerry upkeeps Dragon Slayer on Venethrax and allocates one focus to the Deathripper, keeping the rest of his impressive stack for himself. The Pistol Wraith on Jerry's left shoots and kills the Wilder, then shoots the Shifting Stone nearest, hitting, boosting damage with the Soul Token, but failing to do enough damage to destroy it. The Pistol Wraith on his right flank advances into melee range with Nuala and kills her, but then cannot make any more melee attacks since it is engaged by the Stalker, but farther than half an inch from it. The Skarlock activates and puts Soul Harvest back onto the Bloodgorgers on Jerry's right. Those Bloodgorgers then advance and kill 3 more Bloodtrackers, putting another 3 Soul Tokens back onto Venethrax. The Mechanithralls advance over the linear obstacle into the scoring zone and kill a Ravager. The Necrosurgeons advance up behind the linear obstacle and to the right of the house. The Bloodgorger remaining behind the house on Jerry's left advances and kills a Tharn Ravager. The Deathripper spends its focus and runs forward to try and draw a line on Kaya, but it's unfortunately blocked off by the Shifting Stones and my heavies. Venethrax then activates and casts Blood Rain onto the Shifting Stone right next to Kaya and hits. He boosts damage on Kaya, but fails to exceed her armor. Venethrax decides to sit on his focus instead of going for more, leaving his armor in the stratosphere and arguably too high for Ghetorix to crack. The Seether runs forward next to the linear obstacle and Jerry passes the turn. I start the turn by eating corrosion damage that doesn't expire thanks to Venethrax's Caustic Presence rule. Venethrax is currently armor 27 with all of his focus, so going after him doesn't really seem like an option this turn. Even boosting with strength and with primal, Ghetorix will be attacking him at dice -6. My small unit of stones teleports the Warpwolf Stalker into the mess of his Mechanithralls and it goes to town, warping for Berserk and killing 8 of the Mechanithralls and 2 of the Bloodgorgers for good measure. The large unit of Shifting Stones with the Stonekeeper ports Ghetorix next to the Seether. Ghetorix warps for strength, kills the Seether, and then kills the final remaining Mechanithrall. The remaining Bloodtracker stands still and misses a shot on the Pistol Wraith on my left. The remaining Ravager advances up behind the other Pistol Wraith and misses it, only needing 4s to hit. Kaya activates and casts Spirit Fang on the Pistol Wraith on my left and kills it. She then advances into melee range with the Deathripper, boosting to hit with a melee attack but misses. She buys and boosts again, scoring a critical hit to knock it down but does no damage. Then she pops her feet to refill her fury, casting Spirit Door twice to pull Ghetorix and the Stalker back to her in base contact and blocking off line of sight from Venethrax. The remaining Swamp Gobber runs through the forest behind Kaya, the Gorax backs up and rails 3 times, and I pass the turn. With so little of his army remaining, Jerry is forced to go for the throat. With his entire Mechanithrall unit wiped out, he apparently can't bring back any more with his Necrosurgeons, so he's left with what he has on the table. He'll attempt to pull his Deathripper out of melee, but it will go down to my Warpwolves on free strikes. He'll then end up charging one of his own models with Venethrax so that he can get line of sight to Kaya through a small gap between the house on Jerry's right and my heavies. He'll cast 2 boosted Hellmouths on her. Unfortunately for Jerry, his second Hellmouth misses and Kaya will survive the turn, even with a 3rd Hellmouth thrown in from the Skarlock. The Pistol Wraith will try to scoot over to get line of sight on Kaya, but he won't get it. He'll instead take shots on my Shifting Stones, but fails to destroy one. He finishes his turn by running his models forward to stop me from closing in on Venethrax with my heavies. With Venethrax so close to my heavies, I can smell an assassination run, but getting one of my Warbeasts to the enemy Warcaster will prove difficult with his infantry in the way. Neither of my Warbeasts are within a Shifting Stone unit, so teleporting them isn't an option. Yet. Fortunately for me, my large unit of Shifting Stones has a model inside the small unit of stones, so that I can use the small unit to port a model from the large unit over to the other side of my Stalker to put the Stalker inside the large unit. This lets me teleport the Stalker, which will have primal from the Gorax, past his infantry and into Venethrax, where it will then easily be able to kill the Warcaster at effective Mat 10, power plus strength 20. Now that I've played this list a few times, I have to say that I really like it. I feel like in the context of this list that Ravagers have the capacity to make a satisfying enough impact to justify their inclusion, and that Kaya the Wildborne is certainly better than I may have given her earlier credit for. Well, that's it from me, you guys. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for more battle reports from Bellows Lost Souls. If you enjoyed this video, please like it and leave a comment. This has been Relicine, and I am out.